Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I am live with Ricky Colleen, and Ricky has been a friend of the channel for many years. He's got his own channel, he's got his book out, Behind the Bars, and people who've not seen the original podcast we did with him, link is in the description. Also in the description, we've got the link for his YouTube, Ricky Colleen Ruthless Fitness. We've got Behind the Bars Ruthless Fitness book. We've got his Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. So please support his work. He does interview a lot of great guests, a lot of people that have been in prison and have turned their lives around. And he's been doing a lot of coverage lately on Tommy Robinson. Now, I always have to give a disclaimer when we talk about Tommy because he's such a divisive character. We did put a poll up on the YouTube community wall asking if you, the viewers, think his treatment has been unlawful. And 80% said that it has been unlawful, his prison treatment. 20% said it hasn't. On Twitter, it was about 50-50. But what I always say is there's good and bad in everybody. And on this channel, we try and focus on the good in the hope it comes out. And, you know, we've had Scotland Yard detective on, John Wedge, who was raving about the work Tommy's been doing on his documentary exposing the grooming gangs. We've done a lot on this channel, interviewing grooming gang survivors, etc. So it is a big issue that the government is trying to hide. And we've got to focus on the activism side. Now, a lot's been going on in the last couple of months with Tommy in prison and in court. And Ricky has been covering it. And we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to take your questions. So huge thank you for coming on, man.
Oh, no, not a bother, mate. Like I say, I've covered Tommy a few times on my channel. And like you say, he's one of those, you either love him or you hate him. And then if you do mention him, you get a lot of hate. If you don't mention him, people say, why are you not speaking about him? You put him on TikTok, you mention his name, and you get a account warning. See another video and you'll be banned. So, but on my channel, Behind the Bars TV, if your viewers are the ones that aren't familiar with it, I cover stories about people inside a prison, bacons, also known as chomos, getting done inside a prison. And then as soon as you mention someone who's from another culture or another ethnicity, you get a load of grief saying you're far right, you support Tommy. And it's like people have just brainwashed themselves. They put shit on and you get griefed. You get called far right because you're mentioning Tommy. But I'm just covering what's happening inside a prison and what's happening with Tommy and the reasons why he's kept in segregation, because a lot of people are thinking that he's in there or he's put himself on protection, but it's not. It's the actual prison that have put him down there. And it's a good job they've put him down there, really. What they're doing it, people think they're doing it as a punishment, but they're doing it for his own safety. Because if he wasn't in segregation and they put him on normal location, we all know what would happen to him.
Yeah, man. You know, I went out and filmed some of the protests after the Southport murders. And I was speaking to people at the protests, and they were normal, everyday, concerned people. And then all over the news, they were saying these were far-right people. And they were really nice. You know, some of them were coming up to me saying they watched the channel. And they've been long-time supporters and stuff like that. And they were outraged about what Keir Starmer was doing in this country. So what you said about this narrative, if you report on anything that the government doesn't want you reporting on, there's an element of the government and the mainstream media saying that you're far right.
And people are scared to speak up about it and talk about it and cover cases like this because, like what I've just mentioned, you get the odd few trolls, like I've just said, calling you far right and saying you're a Nazi and you're this, and you're like, look at all the people that I've covered on my channel. The majority of them are white people who I'm griefing. So just goes to show.
Yeah, we've both had a variety of characters on our channels. All right, Ricky. So how did Tommy first come on your radar and you thought I should start reporting about him?
Yeah, obviously, I did see that. I was watching him on, what was his name, the fella from Canada? Is it Michael Peterson? the podcast he's got. Someone Peterson, I can't remember. Oh, Jordan Peterson, is it?
Jordan Peterson, yes.
Is that his name? He's got a lot of followers, hasn't he? From Canada.
Oh,
Is that the one?
Massive, yeah.
Aye.
Millions.
Well, I was watching the podcast on there, and he was talking about the video that he'd made, the one that he got told he couldn't broadcast, the one that he's actually in prison for now. And then when you look into it, you actually see that he was actually telling the truth, or as far as you can see. And they're trying to silence him. They didn't want him putting that video out. And obviously he's standing up for what he believes in. That's why he's put that video out. And I thought it was a bit outrageous of the sentence that they give him and put him in a category A, high risk segregation. When for that sentence, what he got, and for the charge, contempt of court, he should have went to a category C prison, or more so a category D. I don't even think he should have been given jail, to be honest. He should have just gotten a suspended sentence. Then they would have given him time to reflect on it. And if he committed any further offences, then that sentence would have been activated. But obviously they wanted to silence him. That's what the video is called. Don't know if you've seen it yourself.
Which video is it?
It's on his Twitter page, the X. It's called Silence. I think it's had it's had over 50 million views.
Wow.
I think it's had around about 80 million, something like that. But yeah, that's when he came on my radar, and obviously when his court case came up, and like I say, they put him in Belmarsh, then they put him in Woodhill. And both of those prisons are full of people that would love to hurt him, take justice out, or their justice in their mind, what they would like to do to him. There's a lot of extremists in them prisons, and it's already been said that a certain prisoner in Woodhill who's a lifer has already said that he would end his life if he came onto the wing. So they're not going to take that chance, and that's the reason why they're keeping him in solitary.
All right. So from your experience then, what are his conditions like in Cat A?
Well, the conditions that he's got, as much as I know just off people that's been going in to visit him, because I've been following a couple of things on X, and I have been following Liam Tough, because he's a good friend of him, and he also speaks his mind, and he speaks what he says is the truth. So when he's been to visit him, or he's been speaking with him, and people that have been in to see him, the conditions that he's living in at the moment in the segregation are quite fair for someone who's in the seg. But the reason being is that he's down there for no fault of his own. He's not down there as a punishment, so he will still have a TV. He's got access to the gym, which no one gets when you're in the seg. If you're on the seg, you don't have gym. You get half an hour a day out of your pad, and he has been getting plenty of visits. He's been getting the gym, and he's been getting out for showers and everything. So he is getting more than what a normal person would get down the block.
And what was it like for you when you was in Cat A? Because a lot of people who are watching now probably didn't see the podcast we did with you because it was done so long ago. How did you find those conditions?
Well, I was 21-year-old when I went to HMP, Franklin, County Durham, maximum high security prison. But at the time, the age that I was and the mentality that I was in, I didn't really give a toss about being in there. And as mad as it might sound, for doing time inside a prison, it was quite a good jail to do prison in. Even though it's one of the most dangerous, those prisons, if you've got no beef and you're just getting on with your time, the good prisons to do your time in, because you get a lot more activities, you get to do a lot more gym, you can cook your own food. But on the but side of it is, like I've just mentioned, is the extreme violence inside the prisons in them cartiers, or to the extreme. If you've got beef with someone and they want to hurt you, they're going to try and end your life. They're not just going to use their fists. They're using coffee jars. I think they've done away with the coffee jars now. But back then when I was in, they had coffee jars, chili jars. You could have your own plates, which were made of Aussie porcelain plates. So there was a lot of things that you could use as weapons in there when I was in there. And I did see a lot of violence in there.
Have you got any stories you can tell us from what you saw?
Well, the one that I've told, which is quite known because I was on the HMP Franklin documentary, which is on Channel 5. It's on the My 5 catch-up if anyone wants to go and watch it. The second day I was in there, I seen a terrorist who was named Darren Barrett get a pan of hot oil tipped over his head. And that was obviously because of what he was in for, because he was a terrorist. Yeah, some lad had come in the kitchen, pan of hot oil just bubbling away. He's picked it up, just tipped it over the back of his head. All of his hair and his skin and that was just peeling off the back of his head. And then a couple of weeks later, a retaliation attack happened on a lad from up in Newcastle. Well, he was from Gates and actually Malacrotus. He was just sitting, eating his scran. He had nothing to do with any of the beef with the terrorists on the wing. But this terrorist, another one, Omar Khayyam, the dirty bomb plot, I think it was. He was another one serving a life sentence for terrorism charges. He felt vulnerable after what had happened to Darren Barrett. He wanted to get off the wing, so he went in the kitchen, boiled a big pan of hot oil up, come up behind Mala, tipped it over his head whilst he's sitting eating his chips, and he'd done that just to get off the wing. Now, Mala's head blew up like a balloon, twice the size. They rushed him straight to hospital. There's actually pictures on Google, if you Google it, where he's sitting in the hospital bed, cuffed to the screw, burns all over him, his arms all bandaged up and everything. And that was just so he could get removed off the wing.
Wow. So it's no joke if it kicks off in there.
Definitely no joke in them places.
Do you have your own cell in Cat A, or do you have to have a cellmate?
No, if you're a Cat A prisoner, or if you're in a Category A prison anywhere in the UK, it's all single cells. I know over in America, when you've done podcasts, you've done stories over there, they have they're called cellies, aren't they? They have their pad mates. But over here, if you're a Category A prisoner, or we're not even just a Cat A prisoner, if you're in a Cat A prison, they're all single cells. As you can imagine, some of the people in them prisons in for murder. They nearly killed the pad mates next door for got the music on too loud during the night. So,
wow. So the higher you go up in America, the less things you can access. So less commissary, less rec time. There's no wait, less food. Is it the same in the UK or is it different?
As you go, like if you're Category A, you get more sort of, I would say, like luxuries. You can get more on the canteen, whereas you can cook your own food. They've got on the landings, they've got a kitchen on every landing where you've got cookers, fridges, where you can store your own food. And on the canteen list, you can buy, for example, a full chicken, steaks, lamb chops. Christmas time, they put bigger a variety on, so you can get like chocolates, boxes of quality street stuff like that, where you couldn't get that in the Category C prison. But obviously, because some of the lads that are in these Category prisons are doing 30s and 40 years, they're never getting out. So they do try and make it as comfortable as possible for them to keep them calm from kicking off.
So it's like a different approach then from in America, where they're more restricted the higher they go up.
Yeah, obviously. I think the reason why they do that, like I've just said, they try and make it as comfortable as possible, because if you imagine you've got all 100 lads on the wing and you're not getting any gym, or you're not getting extra food, or you can't cook your own food, you haven't got stuff to do, you're just going to turn violent and react and take it out on the screws or whatever.
So in the case of Tommy Robinson, then he's housed in like a lockdown facility part away from people who could possibly unalive him. Early on, you said he's got visits and stuff, but will he be restricted in a lot of ways? Like if he goes to rec, would he be on his own?
When he goes up for visits, it'll be like sort of like a legal visit where you're not in the main visits all with the other people. Obviously, because you can get attacked on the visits as well. That's where a lot of people get attacked on visits. So he'll obviously be going for visits by himself. If he goes on the exercise yard, I'm not sure what it's like inside of HMP WOODHILL, but in Frankland, the segregation unit, a lot of people don't go out onto the exercise yard, because if you can imagine like a square where the cells go around, the exercise yard's in the middle. So some of the lads, when they go out on the yard and they've got beef with someone, the other lads who are down the seg have little bottles filled up with piss and shit, and they're squirting it out the window onto the lad who's on the yard, and he's getting it from all directions. So a lot of them don't go on the yard for that reason. So that could be happening with Tommy, but I'm not sure what the layout is like in WOODHILL.
All right, so if you're watching live, I'm here with Ricky Killeen. He's got his own channel. All his links are in the description box. He's doing great work, covering a lot of prison stories, including Tommy Robinson. I see a lot more people putting comments and questions in the live stream. If you've got anything, keep them coming. Before I get back to asking Ricky about Tommy then, I'm just going to read some of the comments and questions that have come in so far. So JL, Tommy should never have been in prison in the first place. Even Trump is warning Starmer about the importance of free speech via trade deals with the US. You know, one of the best things Trump did when he signed his executive orders was tell the social media platforms we're going back to free speech. And if they keep penalizing us, we're going to be able to take action against them. And then when he was inaugurated, he had all the tech bosses lined up behind him, groveling, slobbering, going up to the White House to take their $1 million checks so that they won't, you know, so that he won't censor them because of all the censorship they've done to us over the years. So I agree, JL. What Trump's done via free speech is really enhanced my job security because of all of those bloody strikes and stuff we got, especially covering the Epstein case. And Elon Musk jumping on Tommy's incarceration and giving Keir Starmer a hard time. I mean, Keir Starmer, to me, he's just a total sellout. He's cutting money from everything in this country, pensioners, etc. Yet he's always got money to go bombing people with, so he can make his cronies in the military companies wealthier and wealthier. And he's just an absolute sicko. He's got the charisma of a worm, and every time I see him, I'm just disgusted by what they're doing. And but Ricky, any thoughts on that comment then about freedom of speech and Tommy and Trump?
Well, like you say, with Elon Musk, the best thing ever, him buying that platform, because like you say, anyone can go on there. Doesn't matter what opinion you've got, even if Elon Musk doesn't agree with it, he lets you on that platform to speak your mind. And Tommy was actually banned from Twitter and X, Twitter. And as soon as Elon Musk took back over, that's when Tommy came on, and that's when he started becoming in the limelight again, because he couldn't be on any social medias. And even when people were setting social medias up and broadcasting what's happening with him, they were shutting them straight down. So that's why Tommy seemed to have went quiet a bit, because no one was reporting on him. But it was because of that, because the media and the government were trying to keep him quiet. And obviously when he's getting back onto X, he's got over 1 million followers on there.
Yeah, we were shadow banned on X until Elon took it over. I wasn't getting anyone watching anything. We've got 200 watching on X right now. So nice one, people watching on X.
But
all right, so
again,
next one.
Like you're saying, if anyone is watching, my channel, I've 500 subscribers away from 100,000. So if you are enjoying the content, go and click that subscribe.
Right, I'm going to put your channel link in the live chat so it goes out to the various platforms, and I will. It's in the description box if you're watching it on YouTube on replay, folks. So let's help Ricky get up to the 100K he deserves. Hopefully you'll get a plaque, because they never sent me shit.
Did not get one.
I'm almost at 1 million, and I'm not expecting anything. So
have you getting any plaques yet then?
We're in the naughty corner. All right. So, Riti, has Ricky seen anyone try to get in the mental hospital system like Broadmoor? I'm thinking it might be easier time. Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, he's actually correct. I have seen people do that. And one of them that done that was actually Dale Cregan. He got put into Ashworth Hospital. Obviously, he's doing life without parole. And Dale Cregan, if any of you don't remember the name. He's the one that killed the two coppers, the two police women down in Manchester. So he got life without parole, and he didn't obviously know one would like it, but I know from lads first hand who've spoken to some of my mates said that he wasn't coping very well, didn't like it. You wouldn't, would you, doing a life without parole? So he played on an illness, went on hunger strike, just so he get into a mental hospital for an easier time. And they do actually have an easier time in there because they get more things and they're not treated as prisoners, they're treated as patients. But one of my friends who was in there serving a 35-year rec, life with a minimum of 35 years, he actually spoke to him and said, that's not the way to start your sentence off, because if you start your sentence off in a hospital with all these luxuries and you get sent back to prison, you're going to feel it 10 times more than what you would if you just got on with your jail.
Yeah,
but there is a lot of people that actually try to fake it to get into mental hospitals. And there's a lad up here in the northeast who was reaching out to us from inside of a mental hospital. It was his first time in prison. He was doing a normal sentence. I think it was something like 3 years. And he said he thought, I can't cope with this. And he has got mental health problems, but he played on it. So he got put in the secure hospital. Well, little did he know, they put him in the hospital and he was in there without a limit of time. So they could keep him forever. And he didn't realise that. He thought he still had his release date. So then he's asking me for help, saying, what the fuck can I do to get out of here?
Yeah, people try and play the system. I had a cellmate. He looked like a pocket-sized Henry VIII. We called him Troll. And he was going round in his pink boxer shorts with skid marks on them and just playing with his poo and he'd go court and play with his poo. He was trying to get what was called a Rule 11 classification, which means you're not competent to stand trial. So they send you to the nuts house because some of them think the nut house is going to be better for some reason. But in America, I doubt he was going to get any love at the nuts house. And he didn't. In the end, they ruled him competent anyway. All right. So Savage Panda says Starmer was part of the CPS that got Savile off the charges. He has a lot to answer for. Yeah, I've written a book called Untouchable Jimmy Savile, exposing the BBC's enabling. We've mentioned Starmer, and Starmer's response was he wasn't familiar with the case when he was head of the CPS. Not familiar with the most famous person in the UK's case. Come on now, Pinocchio. Let me see. What was the next question? We got a few more coming for you. How long have you been out, Ricky?
I'm into my 5th year now. I got out in January 2021. That was after I've been recalled back to prison. But I am now sitting here as a free man eventually, because I've been on IPP since I was 21-year-old. I went to prison when I was 20, got out when I was 25, done just over 5 years. Was out for nearly 10 years, got recalled back, done another 14 months. And my IPP, which is imprisonment for public protection, which is a 99-year sentence. I received that when I was 21-year-old. And they could have kept us forever if I didn't behave inside a prison. Obviously, I got out, kept my head down, run my own business, everything now. Got my own gym, obviously run this YouTube channel. And I've been out just over 4 years, and my IPP has been terminated. But a lot of people thought that when I got my IPP terminated, I wouldn't be keeping this up. I would go back to the old me. But I never had a drink or anything when I got my license to celebrate. I kept myself level-headed, just went on holiday with my wife and doing everything that I was doing whilst on license.
Yeah, good for you, man. Ricky has an amazing work discipline. He's up at 4 a.m. I was up at till 6 a.m. with baby Ziggy today. So I've only just woke up. We're like, it's the story of the owl and the sparrow. But yeah, so to try and coordinate this, because we mostly go live at about 9 at night. That's like our peak hours. You're in bed by then, aren't you?
I'm asleep at 9:30 every night. Asleep at 9:30, up at around about 4:30. Open my gym up at 5:30. I do a certain class with 10 people. I teach all them. I get called every name under the sun. at that time of the morning because I'm beasting them, put them through an intense circuit. And then obviously I train myself, and then in my spare time I do my YouTube. But obviously if I had a lot more time, I'll be doing a lot more on here, doing a lot more lives and that. But got a very busy schedule, and I've got 4 kids and a wife to look after, so
Man, 4
it's
kids.
non-stop.
Wow, that's a lot of work right now you put in. But you are glowing with health, brother. Your skin and everything, you can see from the fitness. All right, so Mr. Steve, I had a case against the Director of Public Prosecution back in the day. Guess who it was? I've sued the Prime Minister. Yeah, and you know, my friend Andrew Gold did a deep dive on Starmer's role in the family, you know, the parents and the generations, the Southport stabber, and Starmer's role in that, which is a rabbit hole people can go down. And I'm trying to get that guest on so she can come on and explain the whole background story to it. There's a lot of shady stuff gone on behind the scenes at the hands.
Well, he was supposed to have represented his dad or something, didn't he?
Yeah,
something down them lines.
And it goes back to like colonialism and the exploitation of these countries, and then the protection of certain people. And yeah, it's crazy. All right, so oh yeah, Lee Marvin Hitchman is watching, giving you a shout out. Well done, Ricky.
Yes, Lee, how are you doing? Hope you're keeping well.
Watching live on your show. If you've not read Born in Prison, you can see the cover in resplendent orange on the screen right now with the comment right there, and it is phenomenal. Almost 5 stars.
I've got a great story. Lee's Journey Lifelong wrote that book, and he's there. I've had him on my podcast as well. Done a good podcast with him, tell his story.
And he's a brave man. He's been through so much harrowing stuff. Do you support the Borough, the Magpies? Sorry, I have to know. That's from Cats.
Definitely black and white, Newcastle. I'm not a big fan of football, but I was born in Newcastle, so that is my team.
So we've got over 500 watching live across all the platforms presently. So if anyone's got any questions for Ricky about his story, his journey, his channel, his book, his fitness, or any questions about Tommy Robinson, put them in the live chat now, please. So Savage Panda, has Ricky watched any updates on Tommy, like 2CTV, that have been to see Tommy, so you're aware of Tommy's conditions?
I haven't watched it for a couple of weeks now. I did used to pop up all the time, 2CTV. I've watched some of his stuff. He's got some interesting stuff on about Tommy. He is a supporter of him, and he does tell the truth, and he exposes a lot of stuff actually. So he has got a good channel, and he is quite intelligent. But like I say, I've not seen anything for a couple of weeks. But he was keeping everyone updated on him, so I will have to have a look, actually see what he's got to say.
Off the top of your head, can you remember the last things you watched that he was exposing?
I think he went in to visit him, and something happened after the visit where they were trying to shut him down or something on his channel. I'm sure they said the coppers were getting involved as well. I'm not sure exactly what it was.
So for people who are not familiar then with Tommy's conviction, and there's a lot of controversy, and his wiki page says some strange things. What did he actually do or not do? Because you earlier on said he shouldn't even be in Cat A because it's been hyped up.
Like I say, he got done with contempt of court for showing that video, didn't he?
So this is the video on his ex, the documentary that we had.
On his ex, that's the reason why he's in prison, because he showed that video, and he did have a court case where the judge had said to him, he did say, if you show that video, then you will be back up in court for contempt of court. That's exactly what happened. So we're putting him straight into somewhere like Belmarsh when he could have just been sent. Obviously, you've got to go to your local prison, which is like your remand jail as soon as you're sentenced. Then you get categorized, and then you get sent on to whichever facility suits you. So if you get category C, they'll look for your closest cat C to where you live. So in Tommy's case, He should have been category C or even category D because of the charge. If it's violence, then you're either cat A, B, or sometimes C. If it's for drug offences or burglaries, different things like that, you get category C. And people who are in for fraud, cases like that, where there's no violence or anything involved, and you're not an escape risk, you go to category D. In Tommy's case, he showed a video. He's not going to be an escape risk because he's so high profile. They should have just put him in a cat D. Then he would have been able to live on a normal wing with the other lads without threats against him, because people in cat D prisons aren't going to attack Tommy because they're in there, because they're progressing, and he would have been fine. Then he would have had time to do what they say they're trying to do, rehabilitate you. So he would have been able to go out go home leave on a weekend to see his family, do whatever he's got to do. That would have been no issues there. He would have took it on the chin. He knew what he was doing. He knew he was going to get jailed, to be honest. But he didn't know they were going to put him in a segregation and keep him like that, like a caged animal. But they're saying they're doing it for his protection. And because he's in that prison, it is for his own protection, but he shouldn't be in that prison.
Did the judge specify what in the video was causing a problem for him?
Well, it was the fact that he was talking about what happened with, there was an issue with a Syrian schoolboy. Yeah, are you familiar with that case?
Was it an abuse case or a murder?
No, it was something to do with that Syrian. Actually, what happened on the school playground, some of the kids had filmed it. This Syrian schoolboy was quite violent with the other pupils. And I think he attacked something similar. He done something, or he threatened a girl in the school. The girl's brother come up, had a bit of a roll about with him. They videoed it, and I think he poured a bottle of water over his head or chucked a bottle of water on him. Whoever got a hold of the video, the news outlets had spread it worldwide, saying that they'd waterboarded a Syrian schoolboy inside a school. So as you can imagine, there was uproar in the community, especially in the Muslim community, and all the migrants that have came over, and they're saying like, this is the treatment that they're getting. And they only showed that little bit. Tommy had looked into the case to see what had happened. It was actually the white lad who would actually pour the water on him was the one that was getting loads of abuse, getting loads of threat of Muslim men, saying they were going to come to his house and burn him out and everything. Obviously, he moved in with Tommy. Tommy had moved the family in with him because they were under a threat and fear for their lives. So when you looked into the case, it was actually the white schoolboy who was protecting his sister who was getting all of the abuse. And he was the one that had to move out of his area and get housed for protection. So they didn't dig into it properly, but when Tommy went and investigated it to find out what had actually went on, he was interviewing teachers, interviewing other pupils, and they were all saying the same, that this Syrian kid was violent and he was causing a ruckus in the school, and the lad was defending his sister.
Got you. Okay, so it was all a manipulation then, as usual, by the powers that be who co-opt these things for their own
So,
benefit.
like I said, they got a hold of that short clipping of the video, and it went viral, and it did make it look as though they were picking on the Syrian kid. But when you look into the bigger picture, that's not what happened.
All right. So your question from Jack then is, should we have different prisons for different religions? Because it seems like interviewing people who've been in prison over the ages in the UK, you've seen the growth of the Muslim prison gang in the UK system. And a lot of people we spoke to have said, you know, they've come to dominate a lot of prisons and call the shots in a lot of different areas. Now, in America, like it's all the different racial categories and they all stick with their own. But in the UK, it's completely different, isn't it? You've just got the Muslim population and then you've got the other population. Is that how it is now?
It is sort of more so in the high security prisons, but a lot of them do if you haven't got beef with them, so to say, they do. It's not as if they don't speak like the Muslims don't speak with anybody else. They do, but they're all stick together. So you've got the Muslims who, as they call it, the Brotherhood. If one person's got beef with them, then it's not just going to be one person that comes. The whole lot of them going to come round. So they're all stick together, and they have got a stronghold on the high security estate.
Got you. Now, what about if someone is a chomo? Do they go to their own prisons like they do in America?
Obviously, they're all in the same prison, but they're on the separate wings. They've got what they call the VP wing, which sounds quite hypocritical because the class is vulnerable. They're anything but vulnerable when they're out on the streets. It's the poor kids that were vulnerable. But when they put these cretins inside a prison, they put them on the VP wings, which I call the bacon wings, because inside a prison slang, they get called bacons, which stands for bacon bonds, rhymes with nonce. Obviously, that's where the name comes from. But also, a bacon comes from a pig, and a pig is a beast. So that's another reason why they call them it. But they have got their own wings out of the way of the normal lads so that they don't be attacked. And that's a lot of the stories that I cover on my channel is about the bacons getting prison justice inside a prison. And I have got a load of merch, which a lot of these ones I will show you. I didn't put it on for the video, but there's can you see that there? There's the Bacon Bashers t-shirt, which is actually flying out from my store. So I wear that when I've been telling the stories about the bacons getting beat up or killed inside a prison.
So what are relations then between the Brotherhood and the domestic population like? Is there tension, or do they get along, or does it vary over time?
What with the VP prisoners?
No, the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And the locals, what's the relations with them like?
Like I say, they do get along with the other prisoners, but a lot of the other prisoners don't like what goes on with them sometimes inside a prison, because I've covered a few stories where some of them are extremists and they're trying to radicalize the other inmates. And as you can imagine, some of these other lads from other areas are watching this going on and they don't tolerate it. But when they react to it, maybe they'll go and do one of them in. Then they'll get put in the block and transferred to another prison. But then they won't put them on the wing, exactly what they've done with Tommy. They'll put them in the segregation for their own protection, even though they'll be saying, I don't want protect, I want put on there. I want to be put on the normal location wing. But they just refuse point blank, saying you're not going on the wing because your life is at risk or you might attack them. So then this individual, is kept in the segregation unit. As a punishment, they're trying to say it's for their own protection, but some of them are sat in the block for 2 and 3 years. There's actually a lad in Frankland prison now who's been in the block for over 2 years. He's got trouble with the Muslims. Obviously, the high security prisons are full of Muslims on nearly every wing. He's obviously saying he wants to go on the wing, but they won't put him on in case of what might happen. So then he's just left to rot in the block for years on end.
Wow. We had a guy come on, Segragation, the podcast called Liverpool Taxman, Radicalized by Prison Terror Networks. So is that rare where you see people, UK lads convert over? Is that rare, or is that happening a lot?
No, it's actually not. It's not rare. A lot of the Muslim lads that you see inside a prison, you might think in your head like a Muslim that's inside a prison, but you might think like a Pakistani or an Indian or something like that. You might get that image in your head, but they're not. A lot of them are black lads, black UK lads who weren't Muslim on the outside, but they're in prison and they've converted to Islam to become one of the brothers. But I think the reason why a lot of them do it, see, a lot of these lads that are in prison for murder, gangbangers on the streets, they're all part of gangs on the outside. So all their lives, just here for instance, the lads from down at London, all these postcode wars are all gang members. They grew up as part of a gang. They get sent to prison for murder, they're no longer a part of a gang. They're by themselves. But then this Muslim Brotherhood will say, convert to Islam, come to us, and you'll be part of us. So they're just jumping straight on it because they've always been part of a gang. So that's the mentality, and that's the reason why a lot of them do it. But they're not just black lads, there's a lot of white lads that convert as well. And you see them walking around with the robes on and the caps.
So I'm just looking at the numbers now. It says in 2021, there were 6.5% of the population of England and Wales is Muslim. But then in the prison, you've got 39,000 Christians, 27,000 no religion, 15,000 Islam, and 2,000 other. So that's about, if we've got 6% population outside of prison, but the prison system, it looks like it's about a quarter. Does that sound about right? It's about a quarter, and it's
maybe
growing,
it's about 20%, but
and it's growing fast.
It's growing fast, but I bet a lot of them see these individuals and those numbers will be going off when you first get put into prison. They'll say, "What's your religion?" They'll be saying none. But what about the ones that have converted whilst in prison? I bet those numbers aren't in the statistics.
And what do you think a reason is then for that population growing so fast? Is it the unfettered people coming over, without being screened, all the illegal immigration? Do you think that's contributing towards it?
Well, it probably will be, because the amount of that are coming over unvetted. But I'm not quite sure on the statistics there, but there is obviously a lot of them ended up in the prison system. But again, the numbers are growing. I don't believe they're growing because of them. I believe the numbers are growing because of the ones that are converting inside of prison. Because like I've mentioned, when someone was asking that question, there is lads who are big time gangsters on the outside. I knew a couple that were in Whitemore prison, which Whitemore is predominantly a Muslim prison. And he done it for his own safety. He thought he was going to become under attack. He felt vulnerable, and he ended up converting. And then once you convert, you can't be attacked. You're then part of the Brotherhood.
And is it the case that some sex offenders have been able to do that, or is that just a myth?
Well, I didn't witness any myself, but there has been individuals who were going to put themselves on the nonsense wings because they were either deaded up or they had trouble with other gang members who weren't like non-Muslim gangs, or gang members rather, from the outside. And obviously the Muslims can see what's happening. They'll approach them and say, "Listen, come with us and you'll be protected." So instead of them going on the VP wings, they're then converting to get protection.
So I saw people converting to various religions to get food, just to get better food. So there was a time when we had a soft rabbi, and people were converting to the Jewish religion. So you had all these neo-Nazi Aryan Brotherhood guys with Hitler all over them, converting to the Jews to get the kosher food, blessed by the rabbi. You had Mexican Mafia Jews. Sammy the Bull's son, Gerard Gravano, converted to the so Italian Mafia Jew. So that do you see anybody playing the system like that? Just doing it to get the better food? And is the food any better in prison if you convert to a certain religion?
Well, there was talks of that, because obviously when you're picking your menu, because you get what you used to get given, obviously your paper menu. Obviously now everything's technology. You've got a kiosk where you pick your own food, what you want for the following week. And there is obviously the halal option. And on the halal option, you have like curries and different things like that, which are a lot better than what was on the normal menu. So you could only pick that option if you were a Muslim. But they did change that where anybody could actually pick that menu or that option, because you did have that sort of problem where people were coming down screaming at the lads who were serving the food out, or screaming at the screws, saying, I am a Muslim, I want that option. So then what they done was, obviously, to make it fair, to give everyone that choice.
So when you were in Cathay, what were the food options for you?
Yeah, when I was in Cathay, I very rarely ate the prison food, because obviously, like I've mentioned, you can cook your own food. And I was on a what's called a food boat inside a prison, where you've got your own little group of lads. There was about 6 of us, and we would all chip in our money, buy a load of food, buy vegetables, salads, all your meats, all your curry powders and different things like that. And every night we would have a different meal. So we'd have like curries, steaks, chicken dinners. We were eating the very best of food. I was actually eating better in prison than what I was on the out.
And what about the inmate store, the commissary, when you're in Cat A? What kind of items are available?
Like I've just mentioned before, you can get the luxury items that you can buy is actually steaks, lamb chops, chickens, stuff like that, lamb joints. You can buy big gatos. So at Christmas time, we had everything. We had a big bag of frozen food. Obviously, when you're doing bits inside to make a little bit extra, all that money's going towards buying big chunks of meat. So we had the biggest bag of meat on the wing.
What about stuff like TVs, Walkmans?
Obviously, everyone had a TV, but back then when I was in Fratton, it wasn't these thin TVs what we've got now. It was the one with the big back on the big the glass screen. So you had a TV, you could have a PlayStation, you could have a hi-fi. Believe it or not, some of the hi-fis you could spend up to £300. And obviously 15 years ago, £300 on a hi-fi, you can imagine the system you could get. You could get like a 500-watt system. It didn't matter how many watt it was inside of them prisons. And some of the lads, when they pissed up on the hooch, and they go back to the pad and the door shut and they whack that up full volume, the whole prison just vroom, vroom, vroom. There was one lad, I'll tell a story, everyone was booting the fuck out of the doors because he was that drunk when he went back on the hooch. He fell over, fell asleep on the floor, left his hi-fi full blast, and his CD started skipping. So it was like, and it was full belt, 500 watts, vibrating through the walls. All the lads were booting the doors, trying to wake him up, shouting at the screws, saying, wake him up. But the screws can't go on the pad once the doors are locked on a night time when everyone's banged up. So that went on for about 6 hours.
Man, that's absolute bloody torture. Where I was at, it's like a 10-10 rule. After 10 at night, if you make any noise, when the doors open, you're gonna get smashed. And all of the stereo stuff, it was all clear plastic, so you couldn't hide anything in it. And you had to have ear sets, so no one could hear any noise. You couldn't like play a stereo in your cell. I come across the rare occasion when some people did try and rig that up, but it's all like clear tech with headsets, so you can't get in any one of us. The noise isn't going down the run or anything like that. It would just cause mayhem.
It was like that in there as well. From about 8-9 o'clock at night, very rarely you could hear a pin drop. And like you say, if anyone was making a noise or kicking off, like the next day they'd be hell on. Like lads would be coming out. There's been loads of times where people have come flying out of the pads and attacking other people because they've had the telly too loud or they've had the music too loud. But obviously, when the lads were having a bit of a hooch, we used to give them a bit of leeway. Obviously, if someone was making a load of noise, you would just think, right, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's tanked up, so just leave him.
So Sharon said, my husband couldn't get out of his cell to go to church weekly. He got christened, so he had time out of 24/7 lockup, sloop, old-fashioned, strain ways, Walton, Preston, and Risley. He wasn't high cat. So in America, the prison gangs have pretty much got the same rules. You know, no talking to the guards, that's snitching. Chomos are going to get battered, things like that. Is it in the UK? Does the Muslim Brotherhood and the overpopulation, are they all on board with the same kind of convict code, or do the rules differ between those two populations?
Obviously, it depends. Different prisons, different people, but obviously there is that code. It goes without saying, no grassing, no snitching. Obviously, if you're a bacon chomo, like you won't be on the wing. And obviously you can't, like, people don't talk to them type of prisoners anyway. But obviously, yeah, like you say, there is that code. But a lot of the lads in the high security prisons, it's a lot different as in with the screws, because the screws are a lot more fair in those prisons. They treat you a lot better. They don't talk to you like crap like they do in the CATCs and local prisons for obvious reasons. People are in there who are never getting released. If you start talking to them, giving them disrespect, then they're going to attack the screws, and the screws don't want that. And the screws in Frampton, when I was in there, the majority of the lads spoke with them because, like I've mentioned, they are fair. And believe it or not, in the high security prisons, you call the screws by the first name. So in a normal prison, you call them either boss, gov. The young offenders used to call them sir, or you would call them by the second name, Mr. Whatever. But like in the category A high security prisons, you call them by the first name, which, like I've mentioned, you get on with them a lot better in them prisons.
All right, so if you've got any questions, I'm with Ricky Colleen, who has served time in Cat A. We're talking about conditions in Cat A in relation to what Tommy Robinson is going through. So will he be kept locked down for his own safety until he gets released, Ricky?
He will be, like I've mentioned, because he's so high profile. The governor who's in charge in that prison, if he or she, whoever it is, gives the go-ahead for him to go onto a normal location wing, and he's killed or attacked, then that governor who's issued that will be obviously under investigation as to why you would let someone who's so high profile, someone who's already got a target on his back, why did you put him on that wing to be attacked? So that is the reason why they'll be keeping him down there. And I have heard that they are treating him fair. He sent a message out saying that he's talking to the screws and they are getting on with him. So he hasn't got any animosity towards them the way they're talking him and treating him whilst he's in there. But obviously, their hands are tied. He's been sent to their prison for whatever reason. Now that he's under their duty of care, they've got to keep him in segregation so that he doesn't get attacked. And like I mentioned, a lot of people are saying they're keeping him down there as a punishment. The governors, the screws, they're doing it on purpose. But they're not. They're doing it for his own protection. Because there is some naughty people in that prison that won't think twice about sticking something in them.
So even when you're locked down, they've got ways of getting you. I heard a few stories that, Aryan Brotherhood, they found out a guy had a peanut allergy, and they got peanut butter, slid it under his cell. I heard about crushed glass in the food, hypodermic needles with hepatitis C in the food. Are those ways they could get Tommy?
There is, but I do believe that he's not eating the prison food for that reason. And he'll be able to have enough money to spend on his canteen to get his own food. Because like I've mentioned, I didn't eat the prison food and a lot of the times I was in. So he is eating his own tinned food, stuff like that, what he gets on the canteen, tins of tuna, packets of noodles, stuff like that. You can just live on stuff like that. Because there will be things like that, like I've mentioned, they'll be putting stuff in the food, and he's not going to take that risk.
Were the reports early on that he thought there was piss and stuff in his food?
There was what? Sorry, there was reports that there was.
With Tommy, was there any reports of anything in his food earlier on, or did he just not eat it from the get-go?
He just didn't eat it from the get-go, as far as I know. But I'm sure when he was in WOODHILL, obviously when you first get there, you haven't got anything. The screws were making him food, making him sandwiches to make sure that nothing was put in it.
So we've got a question from Katz. What's your viewpoint on famous prison riots and wing takeovers in UK history?
Well, the most famous one, obviously, the Strange Ways riot, which Alan Lord was involved with. Them prisoners sacrificed a lot for the conditions that the prisoners are actually living in now. Because the prison conditions that they were living in, they were getting treated like shit. They weren't getting time out of the pads. They didn't have a lot of things. And after them riots, obviously they got punished. They got a lot of time added on. I think some of them got like 10 years, 15 years. But after that, the prison did change. They didn't want that riot happening again because there was other riots happening up and down the country because of that one. They started it off. I can't remember how many days it went on, but it went on for a couple of weeks where they were up on the roof. They were ripping the place to pieces. And the conditions did get better after those riots. So they did do a good job. Well done, lads.
Yeah, we've had Alan Lord on and a few of the lads from Manchester. Fascinating podcasts. And let's see, have you heard of the Farana gang? I've never heard of the Farana gang. I don't even know. I've no idea what that is.
I know exactly what he's on about, the Piranha gang. That was I think the majority of them were Scouses. Some of the lads that I met that I was actually inside with, they had trouble with the Muslims. They wouldn't bow down to them. They were attacking them back. And these lads were extremely dangerous. They were in for murder. And they would murder the Muslims inside a prison as well. So they formed their own gang because obviously they were getting sent to different prisons, getting segregated. They wouldn't bow down to them, like I've said. They formed their own prison gang called the Piranha Gang, and they were putting videos on. I think there's still a couple of videos if you Google it, where they were putting videos on, and they did actually. There was a video circulating where they had a Muslim inmate inside the pad, and they were doing some quite horrendous things to him. Forcing pork sausages on him and all sorts. They made a video saying this is what's going to happen to us. And obviously them lads are still in segregation now, like Tommy is. Some of them are in Full Sutton, some of them are in Long Lawton. And there is some violent things happening with them. I think one of them, some lads come in the pad to attack him. He's jumping on top of the bed with a chip in his hand waiting for them. And he did stab them a lot of times in the face.
Yeah, just seeing that it was reported in the Daily Mail, 2 gangs made up of white inmates called Death Before Dishonor and the Piranhas have been fighting a brutal war against Muslim gangs. Wow. So it is kicking off in there then with the different populations.
But the thing what they're doing, right, which no one who's been in prison or people that know what's going on with these situations don't agree with what's happening. Now, I haven't really spoke about this before, but what's happening with the Muslim gang and the likes of the Piranha lads, the Piranhas, I'll just refer to them as the Piranhas, just for instance, they'll get put in segregation where the Muslim lads are allowed onto the wing, and they're keeping the Piranhas or the white lads in segregation in case anything kicks off. But they have got wings inside of Franklin and a couple of others for extreme radicals. So if you're an extremist, they will put you on a wing with, say, around about 20 or 30 lads, and they'll keep you separated from the rest of the estate. But they won't do it with the white lads. Like, they want their own wing. Instead of being kept in segregation, they want a wing so they can go to and they can do exactly what the Muslims are doing. They're by themselves. They want to be on a wing by themselves, but they won't do it. And there is a lot of legal proceedings going on at the moment where they're trying to get that. Well, the prisoner state is saying, we're not doing that because we'll have white lads or non-Muslims attacking the Muslims just so they can get put on this wing with the ULA. And that's the reason why they're not doing it. But they'll do it for the extremist Muslims. So it's a bit biased. Why can you do it for them, but not for the others?
And talking about Scouse gangsters then, this is another thing that kept me up last night, watching This City Is Ours. Have you heard about this on the BBC?
I'm on to the last episode.
Oh, I'm not going to spoil it, man, but you know when something's brilliant and the end falls flat? This is at the end of this. He's out of this. Oh, man, honestly, my parents, they're about to watch the last one. And it's like, I'm like, I really want to tell them.
It's a cracking series.
Woo, one of the best things I've watched in a long time.
But a lot of the lads that I was there, a lot of the Scouse lads that I was in Franklin with, similar stories to that, and that's actually what goes on. It's when you're not involved in that sort of thing, or you're not from them type of cities like me. I'm out in the countryside, out in the town. It's not a countryside as such, but it's not a big city where I live. It's like a country. And you hear about these stories, what goes on with the Scouse gangsters and that, and you're thinking, fucking hell, brutal.
Yeah, we've had old school Liverpool gangster Charlie Seeger on 3 times now. We're doing a series with him. And I've read all his books. He's got about 6 books out. And there's a scene where they're about to kidnap a jogger, a gangster, right? And in you know, the show we've just watched, The City Is Ours, there's the jogger, isn't he? It just reminded me, like, this is straight out of Charlie Seeger. But yeah, brilliant dramatization. That actor who plays Michael, he's phenomenal. I think he really carries it.
Yes, he's good.
Yeah.
Have you watched the series Kin?
Which one?
It's called Kin, about the Irish gangsters.
No.
Oh, well, you need to watch that. If you think that's good, you want to watch that. It's brutal, that one.
I'm watching Gangs of London season 3, but it's really over the top. And Jen, my partner, she stopped watching it. She just thinks it's too over the top.
It's more like a bit of an action movie, and it's like over dramatized.
Yeah, it's like Rambo, isn't it? All right, so we've gone over an hour, but we've still got a few more questions. Are you okay to answer a few more questions, Ricky?
Yeah, I've got about another 10 minutes or so.
All right. So, let's see. What was let me scroll down. Is there a way you can trace an inmate to see their location or see if they are still alive?
There is something called Find a Prisoner. But if you're trying to find that prisoner, I think once, obviously, the system finds it and they know that you're searching for them, then the inmate gets told that someone's trying to search you. Do you want them to know where you're at? So it has to be, obviously, sanctioned by the prisoner.
Yeah, we had that catch-22 recently because one of our podcast guests, Julia Vandel, who was in the news, the girl who thought she was Madeleine McCann, she got arrested coming into Bristol Airport. And I drove to the cop shop to try and, get in and find out what was going on with her. And they said when someone's arrested, the person who's arrested has got to authorize you as the contact person for them to give you any information.
That's very nice.
So it's like you can't get past that. You can't get past it.
See, because I think what it is, if you're trying to find out, because there's a lot of people asked me saying, can you find out where such and such is, or can you help me find this prisoner? But if you're the victim or an enemy who's trying to find out where the prisoner is, and then that's the reason why they won't tell you. So obviously, if you're the prisoner, you get an email through or whatever, you get an application through your door saying, do you approve this person to know where you're at? the person is such and such, and it's maybe your victim's family or an enemy. So that's the reason why it has to come from the prisoner.
Yeah, and you got to get the date of birth and the prison number and all this stuff to get lines of communication open through email the prisoner. All right, I'll get on to
But
these
at the
next
moment, believe it or not, there's quite a few prisoners trying to contact me. They want to find out information, or they want to have a little chat and do a story on there, or do a podcast rather. There's a certain high-profile inmate who's been category A high security, a high risk rather, for 20 odd years, and he wanted us to do a podcast talking about his case and how it's unjust that he's been kept in these conditions for over 20 years, the longest serving prisoner on high risk ever. And the prison authorities wouldn't let him put my phone number on his pin so he could ring me. And he obviously put a complaint and said, why can't I speak to Ricky Killeen? And the turned around and said, because he's an influencer and a podcaster, he's not allowed to speak to us. But they didn't even know that we had this communication where we were going to do a podcast. Obviously, this was through a third party. But the prison system have just blatantly said no, because obviously everyone, or the majority of screws watch this channel, and the majority of prisoners have heard about the channel. And they've been told that because I'm an influencer or a podcaster, my number isn't allowed on. But he has been in touch with his legal team, and there is an ongoing legal challenge trying to get my number put on. And there is another prisoner, he's actually in WOODHILL, where Tommy is, and he goes by the name of Joe Outlaw. I've done a podcast on him. He's IPP. And they won't let him put my number on in case he speaks about his conditions inside the prison. Surely that should be against his human rights or against the law. There's some sort of law saying that he should be allowed to speak to me about his case.
Yeah, so much for freedom of speech in this country. It's gone down the toilet. And if you want to support Ricky's channel, the link's in the description box. Let's get him up to 100k subs. I'm going to put it in the chat again. Shout out to Stian Was. I found the Scousers in the Nick to be the best banter, dodgy gits, but good crack, absolutely.
The Scousers are a good set of lads. Some of the most dangerous as well.
Do you think that the UK government will change the free speech lockup order when a new Prime Minister is appointed?
I highly doubt it. Whoever gets in, they're not going to want people speaking up. Look at all the majority of the big influencers, the likes like Tommy Robinson, who was speaking about, who got banned off all social medias. Surely that should be against fucking some sort of rights. And Andrew Tate, whether you love him or hate him, he speaks a lot of truth, he speaks a lot of sense. And look at what happened with him. They shut him down everywhere. I've done a video on him, put it on me TikTok, and I got an account warning. Done a one on Tommy, got an account warning. I'm over 125,000 subscribers on TikTok, and I was going to be shut down just for talking about Tommy and his conditions. And the reason was there came up violations talking about propaganda, believe it or not. And all I was talking about was the conditions that he's living in. And I talked about Andrew Tate's court case, and it flagged up straight away.
Yeah, we've had the same problem with TikTok. Anything that's got their names in it just gets flagged right away. So we've just stopped even bothering. And there is no.
But obviously, like the likes of myself, I'm talking a lot about prison, exposing the prison system. And it's as though, well, the probation tried to shut me down when I was on my license. I set my channel up without even informing probation. So I started it up talking about my book, talking about motivation and fitness. But then as soon as I started mentioning prison, the views and the subscribers was going crazy. So I went with what the viewers wanted, started talking about prison. And I had to be careful what I was saying, because when I went into probation, they would say, why have you done a video on him? I've done a video on Damien Bendall when he got attacked in Frampton prison. And probation says, why did you do that video? I said, well, why not? It's in the news. And they were trying to shut me down. But obviously I just argued with it, saying, like, no, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm going to keep my channel going. But they did say, we want you to pause it for a while. I said, not a chance.
Good for you, man. You got to stand up for yourself against these
But
cowardly bureaucrats.
obviously, when I speak about the bacon's getting done inside a prison justice, I can speak freely now. A lot of my subscribers have said, like, me tone has changed since I come off, as then I can speak my mind, because I couldn't say or agree with what happened to them bacons inside a prison. I couldn't, like, laugh about a bacon or a chomo getting done in, because they would say that I'm still sort of inciting violence, even though I'm not inciting violence. They're saying I've still got violent tendencies because I laughed about a bacon getting done in inside a prison.
Which
I was actually in
99.9
fear. Every video I'd done, I was thinking I was going to get recalled to prison.
and 99.9% of the public are for convict justice. Let's just leave it at that. And regarding freedom of speech, we had an ex-Royal Marine on the other night. Shout out to Chris Rolfe from his channel, who got put in prison for a Facebook post. Just commenting on the what happened in Southport. Sharon wants to know: do you keep your same prison number every time you go to prison here in the UK?
You do, yes. I still had the same number off when I was 20-year-old. We keep the same number.
Are there still a lot of people on IPP?
Yeah, I'm not sure on the exact figures, but there's thousands. There's over 5,000, 6,000 still on IPP. There was nearly 9,000 given out altogether. And I think around about 2,000 have had it terminated because obviously they brought new laws out. But there is lads sitting inside a prison now who I was in with when I first went in when I was 20. They were 17-year-old, got involved in a street robbery, pinched a bike off another person, no violence, just threats, got IPP, 38-year-old, still in prison 20 years later, or 20, wait, coming up 20 years rather.
That's so wrong. And one of our first podcast guests was Pepsi Watson, and he was campaigning against it, and he got recalled, and he's still inside now. And he's told me about all the self-harm.
He's actually out, Sean. I've been speaking with him.
No way. When did he get out?
He got out round about maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. But he's another one. He was ringing us from inside of Home House Prison. I've done a podcast talking about his case. The prison got onto it, told him when he was getting released, part of his conditions, he's not allowed on social media. He's not allowed to talk he's allowed to talk to me, but he's not allowed to come on my channel or anything like that. So he got a message back saying, please tell Ricky not to do any more videos on us. And he rang us up. He's in a hostel and he's keeping okay. But like I say, he's not allowed to be on social media. So what is that all about? He's another person that was speaking up for the IPPs, talking about the injustice, and they've silenced him. What is all that about?
Oh, I'm probably on the top of the list then of people not to talk to when it comes to him. Steve wants to know, have you heard about the new prison build called Mill Sykes Cat C?
I've heard about it, yes. I've seen something. It actually looks like a decent prison. Looks like it's going to be sort of a training prison where they're going to have more facilities to train people up ready for release for jobs and different things, which they should do. All prisons should be like that, where they have facilities to train people up, give them CSAS cards, stuff like that. So when they're coming up for release, they can get straight into employment rather than leaving prison with a drug addiction, because the prisons are rife, and then going straight out. What are you going to do when you get your £60 release? You're going to go straight to whoever to get your bits.
Sharon wants to know, do you think private companies has made prisons here? Do you think what do you think of the private prisons, basically?
The private prisons are the ones that are on the arse the most, I would say, as in violence and drugs, because a lot of the staff are bringing it in, and it has, in a lot of the prisons, made the prisons worse.
Yeah, the private prisons are just contracts given to the government's cronies, and they get kickbacks called political contributions in the millions. The private prison contracts in the tens of billions a year. And they come in, they say they're going to clean it up, modernize, have all these great facilities, rehabilitate. The stats are going to be high. We're going to show the public we're doing great. And as soon as they get in, within a couple of years, they're run down to hell. They're cutting costs. In Arizona, the private prison, the alarm was going off hundreds of times a month because they were too cheap to fix it. So a bunch of murderers got escaped and went on the rampage, killing people. And then when they investigated it, the alarm had gone off. And they were like, oh, it's just the alarm's gone off again. So, yeah, it's all just a scam. Just like war is a scam, private prisons is a scam. It's all about spending your taxpayer money on contracts to their mates and getting kickbacks off it. All at our expense, folks. You got a question here about Tommy. When will Tommy be free? And is Elon Musk involved?
Well, Tommy is due for release. He's got his release date, which is in July. So whatever happens, he's got to get out on that date because that's his official release date. But he is back up in court. Oh, no, sorry. He is, I think it's this month, he's got something coming up where he's trying to appeal against that sentence, where he could get out a bit earlier. But we're into April now, so he's going to be out in the next few months.
So we've done a lot of coverage on grooming gangs on this channel. We had Maggie Oliver on years ago, and we've just interviewed one of the ladies that was a survivor in that BBC show, The Three Girls, with Maggie Oliver. That's coming out soon. We interviewed a woman the other week who was R-worded by over 70 men and was passed from one gang to another gang and then to Morocco. Absolutely horrific, disgusting crimes. And the question you're getting asked, Ricky, is these grooming gang members, when they get convicted and they get pathetic little sentences, how are they treated in prison?
Again, those type of prisoners obviously go on the VP wings, the bacon wings. So they are obviously S offenders, all get put on the same wings. So they don't come into contact with the normal location lads, because if they did, the normal location lads would attack them on sight for them type of offences anyway.
Yeah, we've got a viewer saying the government are complicit. So we had a brave Muslim guy on called Raja, who has been exposing the grooming gangs. He knows all about politics, and he said they're trading votes to protect the grooming gangs, keep community relations, get more votes, protect the grooming gangs. That's how it's been working, and he's got first-hand knowledge of that, and he's getting death threats on his life for exposing this. So I know
with Keir Starmer, what happened with him? He didn't want to. He said he wouldn't do an investigation into it, did he? They done a vote on it, and he said no. So they weren't going to investigate it. What does that tell you?
They did a vote on investigating it in London about a month ago, and Labour voted against it. Conservatives voted against it, and Reform voted against it. They're all in on it, man. It's absolutely sickening. Sickening. Why would they not want to investigate girls getting R-worded in this country on an industrial scale by crime networks that are a threat to society? It's the only reason they're not is because they're in on it. They're complicit, enabling, and they're getting the votes. They don't want to rock the community relations boat, and it's sickening.
Careful what you say. You want to be sitting next door to Tommy.
Ricky, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend.
Nice one.
People, please subscribe to Ricky's channel. He's almost at 100K. What would you like to say in conclusion to the viewers? What can they look forward to on your channel? And what's in your book? What can they read in your book? What exercises can they do?
So on my channel, obviously, like I say, I talk a lot about what's happening inside the prisons. And the ones that get the most views, what the viewers love listening to, is when the bacons, the chomos get done inside a prison. So I do cover those stories. And I cover a lot of stories about police officers, the likes of Wayne Couzens. A lot of them, you wouldn't believe the amount of coppers up and down the country that are getting sent to prison for those type of offences. So I cover all of those on my channel as well. And my book, Behind the Bars, Ruthless Fitness, Here's a fitness book that I wrote whilst in prison during COVID, and it's about physical and mental fitness training, how to better yourself and how to make the most of your life. And it teaches you how to get fit without the need for going to the gym. I got fit during COVID, the fittest I've ever been, both physically and mentally, in the worst place possible during the worst time possible. So I've wrote that book to let people know if I can do that in those conditions away from my wife and kids on an IPP with no release date, you've got no excuse for not to do it out here to better your life.
Power to you, brother. If there's anything we can help you with, let us know. I'm going to let you go and I'm going to close the show. So thanks for coming on, man, spending time with us.
Nice one. I've enjoyed it. Good chat.
Cheers, Ricky. Take care, brother.
Cheers. Take care, mate.
Bye. All right, folks. Thank you for all of your questions. And we've got loads more content coming up over the weekend. All of Ricky's links are in the description box. We've got his Insta, his TikTok, his Facebook, and his YouTube. And also the link to the part 1 podcast we did with him years ago when Jen and I went on tour in the Northwest and in the North. And I think we filmed 30 plus podcasts over 2 weeks. And Ricky was one of them when we were up in the Newcastle area. That's also when Jen got pregnant with baby Ziggy, was around that time. Jen started her own podcast. And if you stay tuned, I was her first guest. And she asked me some great questions. Got stories out we have never told before. So when this video finishes, it will transfer you over to that one if you're watching it on my channel. Otherwise, Ron's got some shows coming up today. I'm doing a show at 9 p.m. tomorrow. I'm back 9 p.m. tomorrow, talking about the possibility of World War III with Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Iran, all the stuff that's going off in the Middle East. And then let me see what else we've got coming up. We've got George, the Giant Slayer, coming up on April 8th, talking about the end of woke. And we just had Bob Marley's daughter on part 3, which is getting a lot of positive comments and feedback right now. She's really exposing the elite and the rituals and Diddy and stuff like that. All right, well, thank you for tuning in, everyone. Much love wherever you are in the world. Take care, and hope to see some of you